welcome to my book journey. Today I have my recommendations for my Journey Through Time May prompt. So the prompt that I picked for May is Latin America, and this one is proving to be one of the more difficult prompts for my Journey Through Time challenge. Not only because I haven't read a lot of these books. In fact, I think every single one of the books that I'm sharing with you today, I have not read any of them. And so take that as it is. But I've heard a lot of good things about these books, and I've gotten recommendations from people that I know that say that they heard that they're good or they've read them. And so I just wanted to quickly go through these books. I don't have a whole lot of them. I have all of these I have on my shelves, or I have checked them out from the library. I do, I was trying to think, I do have some that I will put up here that I know about, but I just don't have them on hand. So let me just go ahead and start with the books that I have. I'm going to start with a middle grade book, actually. And so Latin America, of course, encompasses Mexico, Central America, South America. But this particular book starts in Central America, and then they go up to California, I believe. But I will still count that, being as it started in South America. Oh, sorry, moved my camera there. So that one, the book I'm talking about is Esperanza Rising. And so there's that one. I love this cover. This is one that's been like on my TBR for a long time. You know, always try to read it during middle grade March, but I haven't got around to it yet. So this has about a young girl that is living on her family's ranch in Mexico, but then they end up during, it says, but a sudden tragedy shatters her world and forces Esperanza and her mama to flee to California. So we start in Mexico, but then we flee to California. So there's that one for a historical fiction middle grade book. These next two are more like young adult books, but I forgot that I had these on my shelf. I picked these up a while back at a library sale. So the first one is Flight to Freedom by Ana Becenas, I should have pronounced her name better, Suarez. And so this one is about a young woman. Let me read it right here. It says, Yara Garcia and her family live in a middle-class life in Havana, Cuba, so set in Cuba. But in 1967, as communist ruler Fidel Castro tightens his hold on Cuba, the Garcias, who do not share the political beliefs of the Communist Party, are forced to flee to Miami, Florida. So here's another one where we're starting in Central America and Cuba, and then heading to Florida. But see that I'll still count that one since it's takes place in part in Central America. So there's that one. That one sounds really good. And then the other young adult one I have is called Before We Were Free by Julia Alvarez. And I have two books by Julia Alvarez. This is the first one. And this one is set in the Dominican Republic. This says, Anita de la Torre never questioned her freedom growing up in the Dominican Republic. But by her 12th birthday in 1960, most of her relatives have immigrated to the United States. Her beloved Theo Tony has disappeared. Bobby keeps getting mysterious phone calls about butterflies and someone named Mr. Smith, and the government secret police regularly search her house for evidence of her family's opposition to the country's terrifying dictator. So another one that's dealing with, struggles and things in their home country. So this one is set in the Dominican Republic, and that's a short one. So I know which book I'm going to read for my challenge, but since these two are really short, I might slip these in and read these in May as well. Okay, so this next one is not a historical fiction, but I'm going to count it anyway. It is a nonfiction, and last month I also gave you a nonfiction too. That was historical. And this one is a book. I have not read this one, but I saw the movie a long time ago, and it was really intense. And this is the story of the Andes survivors is alive. And this happened in, what year did this happen? I was trying to remember. there was a plane crash that happened in 1972, looks like. Maybe, yeah, 1972. A sports team coming, I can't remember exactly where they were coming from, and they were flying and they crashed in the Andes Mountains. And the story is they were up in these Andes Mountains for so long, and they were so here's the team that crashed there, and they just had to survive. So it's a survival story for sure, and what they ended up doing is really tragic, and to survive, to make it through. I can't remember how many days they were up there, but they were up there quite a few days. And yeah, here's the thought where they surviving up there in the Andes Mountains. So that one is a possibility. If you like reading nonfiction books, that one would be a good one to read. I mentioned this one on a recent video because it was my library video. I checked this one out at the library. This one's called White Rose, Una Rosa Blanca, and this one takes place also in Cuba. I have a lot of books set in Cuba about Cuban revolutionaries, and so that one's another book that's dealing with the government issues. So there's that one. Another book that I have that is Cuban, set in Cuba. It's Havana. It says Next Year in Havana, and I have had these books on my shelf forever. I found them in a library sale. I think I have 2 or 3 of these because it's a series, and this is book 1, and so it's Next Year in Havana, and I've heard a lot of things about this book. And this one is a dual timeline. It takes place in 1958, Havana. It says the daughter of a sugar baron, 19-year-old Elisa Perez, is part of Cuba's high society, where she is largely sheltered from the country's growing political unrest until she embarks on a clandestine affair with a passionate revolutionary. Oh, wow. And then the other timeline is Miami 2017, and that says freelance writer Marisol Ferreira grew up hearing romantic stories of Cuba from her late grandmother Elisa, so she's the granddaughter, who was forced to flee with her family during the revolution. Elisa's last wish was for Marisol to scatter her ashes in the country of her birth. Oh, wow. So it says after the death of her beloved grandmother, a Cuban-American woman travels to Havana, where she discovers the roots of her identity and unearths a family secret hidden since the revolution. That sounds really interesting. So yeah, so you wonder, why haven't you not read it yet? It's been sitting on your shelves. But so there's that one, and I know this one, a lot of people seem to have enjoyed this dual timeline book. I picked up this book at a library sale or at thrift store. I can't remember. It's been so long. This one is by a famous author as well, Isabel Allende, and I love this cover, Violeta. And this one takes place in, let's see, where's she out? Where is she? Let's see. Violeta comes into the world on a stormy day in 1920. The first girl in a family of 5 boisterous sons. From the start, her life is marked by extraordinary events, for the ripples of the Great War are still being felt, even as the Spanish flu arrives on the shores of her South American homeland, almost at the moment of birth. So this is a story about her life, I believe, and having to deal with 2 pandemics that she goes through in South America. Yeah, so that is that one. Isn't that pretty? I love this cover. So I've heard a lot about good things about that author as well. The other book that I have by Julia Alvarez was one that was recommended by M, and this is, or M's books are everywhere. She talked about this one, In the Time of the Butterflies, and so that one is another one that would be a good read for this one. This one is also set in the Dominican Republic. There's that one. And then this is the book I will be reading for my Journey Through Time book. I have read this author before. I read a book of his set in the World War II time period. And that is Mario Escobar, and this book is called Remember Me. So let me just read a little bit about what this one's about. It says, amid the shadows of war, one family faces an impossible choice that will change their lives forever. Madrid, 1934. Though the Spanish Civil War has not yet begun, the streets of Madrid have become dangerous for their 13-year-old Marco Alcada and his younger sister Isabel and Ana. When Marco's parents align themselves against General Franco and his fascist regime, they have no inkling that their ideals will endanger them and everyone they love, nor do they predict the violence that is to come. When the Mexican government promises protection to the imperiled children of Spain, the alcaldes do what they believe is best, and they send their children, unaccompanied, across the ocean to the city of Morelia. So, and this was very similar to the book that we read during World War II time, where it was called Children of the Stars, and where they sent, well, actually, it's kind of different. It was the parents that went in that one. But this one is, you know, they're just trying to get their kids out of a war-torn country, and they want to protect them. So we're going to have children that are not with their family, and so it's going to be, I'm sure it's going to be a tear-jerker, and it's not a true story, but it's based on the true stories that families actually did send their kids to Mexico during this time period. So I'm looking forward to that one. Okay, so the books that I don't have, up here is a classic by John Steinbeck that is called The Pearl, and this one takes place in Mexico, and so that one, and it's a short book as well, so that one would be a good one to read. Then we have a book called The Murmur of the Bees. This one sounded really interesting too, and this is set in during the Mexican Revolution in 1918, and yeah, I love that the cover in that one. And then I found a book by Mary Lou Tyndall, and I read her book. Was it a few months ago? Was it a few months ago or last year? I can't remember. But it was about pirates. It was about pirates, and it was really, really good. But I found one that she had called Forsaken Dreams, and it's part of a series called Escape to Paradise, and this is set in Brazil. And so I thought, hey, that would be an interesting one as well. And that's a Christian fiction book by Mary Lou Tyndall. Okay, so those are all the books that I have as possible recommendations for my Journey Through Time Latin America May prompt. And also, just a reminder, I have my reading challenge on Storygraph, and I will link that again below. And people have put recommendations of other books as well on that, on Storygraph for that prompt. So if you're in need of other ideas, then you can check out Storygraph for some other recommendations. Okay, so those are all the books that I have for you today. I know it's not a lot, but like I said, I haven't read a whole lot myself. I haven't read anything that I can think of that would count for this prompt. So that's why I'm kind of challenging myself as well in this for this month. So that is it. Comment below if you are planning to join me this month in reading a book set in Latin America. And let me know if you have a book, if you found one, or you've read one and can recommend to others. Be sure to link that below. All right, that is all I have for you today. You all have a blessed day.